Hello, all. In reviewing very strange science fiction movies on Tubi, I came up with one that's almost beyond description. It's a very weird 2001 Anglo-German production called The Nine Lives of Tomas Katz. It's in black and white. It's completely surreal, and obviously meant to be. I'm familiar with a lot of surrealistic movies. I like the works of people like Guy Madden, who directed things like The Saddest Music in the World, where a woman has legs that are made out of beer mugs, things like that. But this is just kind of goes beyond. Even anything that Madden did, and Madden stuff is pretty darn crazy. Like watching a fever dream. This is just completely, totally nuts. I've never seen anything quite as crazy as this. It has a huge cast, and I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going to read some of the principal, and I'll give you a précis of the plot, but you really have to watch it yourself. It's an interesting experience, I will say that. Strange, but interesting. It's about a character who is never called Tomas Katz in the thing. He is sometimes referred to as No, which is the name he took on in a seance that's conducted by this police constable, played, I believe, by Toby Jones. And it stars Tom Fisher as Tomas Katz, or No. Ian McPeace as the inspector. I'm sorry, it's Ian McPeace, not Toby Jones. Tony Maudsley as a taxi driver. Andrew Melville as the Ministry of Fisheries, actually, is more like it. Amelia Curtis as an underground announcer, who's really bizarre. And Paul Ritter as a guy named Dave, who's kind of a security guard who all he does is he watches like thousands and thousands of TV screens, which I guess are monitoring everybody in all of London. The whole thing takes place in London. It's a London movie, and there's jokes about the underground and the M25. And if you're not that familiar with London, you may not get some of it. I am somewhat because A, I've been there, and B, I'm a bit of an Anglophile, so I got a lot of the references. But it starts off with a guy crawls up out of the sewer through a garbage can lid, and he's a very strange-looking person. He's wearing what looks like a pirate coat and a strange, like, fedora hat. And he goes into a cab, and he seems to be kind of disoriented. And the taxi driver says, where to, mate? He just seems like he doesn't know where he wants to go, and he just drives a few feet, and the guy's saying, strange, you just jumping on in the middle of the M25. Where'd you come from? He says, the sewer. Like, what? Why did this guy come out of the sewer? And then suddenly there's something, he switches. This character, Tomas Katz, can switch places with other people. And now he is the cab driver. And Tomas Katz is the cab driver who's wandering around disoriented. He doesn't know where he is. He drives the cab into town. He meets this Ministry of Fisheries who's coming out and meets a cab. And the Ministry of Fisheries is drawn as a cartoon. So there's a real building, but then there's like a black and white cartoon. He comes out of the illustrated cartoon onto the street. And he starts yakking away about, cab driver starts trying to talk to him. He says, I don't want to talk to you. I have to do my work. And he says, can you read what it says? And there's a sign that says, this is a non-working cab. And he says, you know what that means? He says, no, I don't know what it means. You can't do any work. You're supposed to talk to me, and I'm supposed to talk to you. You're supposed to ignore what I say, and I'm supposed to ignore what you say. And I think it was really funny. And then he switches again. Now he's the Ministry of Fisheries, and he goes somewhere else. He goes to a school, and he sees this kid playing, and suddenly he switches. Now he's the kid, only he's big. He's like a man-sized kid. And they set fire to the school and burn it down. It's just weird. It just gets more and more bizarre. Yeah, I'm not going to recount the entire plot to you because I think it's fun and you should watch it yourself. He keeps switching personalities with these people. There's a weird, like a radio broadcast where they're announcing what's going on. There's this underground tube station announcer who's trying to make these train announcements, and she keeps getting more and more bizarre. She's saying that the underground will now only be used for the transportation of the dead to the afterlife. Like, what the heck? And then it just like jumps all over the place. Parts of it are drawn as cartoons with these like cartoonish, goofy looking, black and white illustrations. Part of it is real live action, and There's a lot of bizarre stuff. Admiral Nelson comes down from his column, and somebody else goes up and replaces him, and he's walking around now. And then again, Tomas Katz switches places with Admiral Nelson, and now Admiral Nelson's walking around frustrated, and he's Admiral Nelson. And there's just a really bizarre ending. There's this character called, like I said, called Dave, and Dave is watching all these security monitors, and a voice comes to him and says, "You have the power to destroy the universe." He says, "Why would I do that?" "Because you're bored." "What are you bored with?" Says, "Well, I'm bored with cars." And all of a sudden, all the cars disappear. "What else are you bored with?" "I'm bored with legs." Everybody's legs disappear. And he says, "I'm bored with, pigeons." And all the pigeons disappear. And he just starts saying, know this and know that. Anything he says no to, he says, "No houses." All the houses disappear. And it's starting in outer London and moving in towards central London. And meanwhile, the eclipse is being predicted hourly on a scrolling board like the boards in Times Square. It says, 4 hours and 27 minutes to the eclipse, 2 hours and 5 minutes to the eclipse. And it's going on. There's these like doomsday preachers who are talking in Hyde Park about, the end is here and you should do this. No, you should do that, And as one of them says, everything's going to become binary, ones and zeros. You have to surrender to the zero, which is the woman's whole, and one is the male phallus, and you must erase these thoughts from your head. And all this bizarre stuff that's going. Another one's going like quoting biblical stuff. Another one's just like a conspiracy theory kind of guy. So there's like 3 or 4 different these doomsday prophets in Hyde Park, and they're shouting at each other and over each other. They don't seem to really notice each other. A lot of weird things happen. Pigeons start landing on Tomas Katz and on everybody, and then the pigeons disappear. And eventually it gets to the final scene, and Dave is saying, no backgrounds, and the background disappears. No colors, and the colors disappear. Well, it's black and white anyway. He says, "No Dave," and then that's it. He vanishes. The movie's over. Very bizarre, very strange, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was really funny. It's obviously meant to be a comedy. There's a lot of in-jokes about London and London life and Londoners and windows and bollards and all this weird stuff. You just have to watch it. I highly recommend it. Very, very funny.